something. I don't know what.
Well, I don't know what the Mavericks are missing because as I look at it, anyway, like they've got an MVP type guy, they've got a big next to him, they've got all kinds of fun stuff around it. I don't know. So Wayne, did you catch any of the game?
I didn't. To me, the Hawks are one of the more disappointing teams because they loaded up with like 6 big free agents, and so I thought, oh, this team's going to be really contending in the East, and they are not.
Yeah. Well, with that said, we're catching up on hoops, fellas. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Midweek Midrange. Thanks for pulling up. I'm your host, Parker Ainsworth. You might recognize the name from Belly Up Sports. I'm also one of the voices of FN Sports. It's a weekly podcast, comes out on Mondays. I'm joined by NBA writer Luke Graham and Infinity Sports podcaster Wayne Gregorie. How y'all doing tonight, guys?
Awesome.
Solid.
Good deal.
It's raining ice here in Kentucky, but other than that, we're good.
Raining ice. We're hoping. So again, if you're new to the shtick, I'm a teacher, and so we're hoping for a snow day here in Dallas, which we don't get a whole lot of. How are things going for you, Wayne?
Not too bad. We've gotten plenty of snow days up here in New Hampshire, where I'm from. It may be hard to believe because you see the Staples Center behind me. I am a Lakers fan that lives in the Boston area. I imagine that. So, but
lots of snow. Get into that. I'm anxious to hear about that because anyway, that's I think one of the funnier. I don't know if funny is the right way to go about it, but that's certainly one of the more interesting things. And so anyway, tonight's our first episode, and we talk about what that means for a first episode or what it means to have a first episode. And we think about like Michael Jordan gets cut as a sophomore in high school, or Larry Bird leaves Indiana for Indiana State. Like the start of their origin story is always something interesting or clever, right? And so tonight, for a part of our origin story, I want to talk about the show is really meant to be a place for people with basketball minds at Belly Up to get out and talk about basketball. We're sharing some of our interesting takes, right? Belly Up is meant to be a place where we are what they aren't, and we have interesting, unique things to say. And so here's a chance to say it. I also want to hear, though, y'all's NBA fandom origin stories. I think that's always fascinating to hear with people, especially a Lakers fan in New Hampshire. Or Luke, don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you're kind of a Nets guy, kind of a Cleveland guy, but not very close to either. So Luke, start us off. Talk me through this.
Yeah, so I'm actually I'm a big Nets fan. I started following basketball, I guess, in probably 2002. I was 8. So that finals with your Lakers, it was but in 2000 and I want to say it was 18. It was the finals after LeBron had that really crappy Cleveland team that lost to the Warriors. The way LeBron just handled himself that game one, where I think he dropped like 50. And JR had that like famous didn't put it back up game. I was like, I got to get into this. And I didn't want to be a front runner. So I was like, I paid attention to the Nets when I was a little kid. So I started following them again. Well, they had 26 wins, and then they ended up making the playoffs next year. And then they go sign KD and Kyrie. And now they trade for James Harden. So I want it to be known on the first episode that I take full responsibility for all the good fortune that has came their way. And as far as Cleveland, they're close. I got a buddy who lives up there, so I pay attention to them. And Sexland, like I'm gonna write on that until it's over, and then I'm gonna write about it after it's over. So.
Well, talk to me. So, are you closer? You're closer to Cleveland than you are Brooklyn. How close are you to Cleveland?
The closest city to basketball wise is actually Indianapolis. Cleveland, I want to say, is like 6-8 hours. I went there once. It's a blurry memory, but I want to say it's about a 6-8 hour drive.
To be fair, I hadn't heard a whole lot of memories outside of LeBron in Cleveland, so that's the way that goes.
Oh, see, I saw Garth Brooks at the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland. It was phenomenal.
Wayne, you're gonna have to explain this LA fan living in New Hampshire. I mean, I know you're a Pats guy, right? And so like that's the heart of New England, the heart of Celtics land, and to go across the country to a rival, right? You're not even going somewhere else in the Northeast. So talk me through this. What happened?
So basketball was probably my first sport. Like the other sports came around later. And growing up, I grew up in northern Maine. So like up in like Limestone, Caribou area, if people know Maine, that's like the tip. Like literally the Canadian border where you cross is in Limestone, Maine. And so I lived up there, and basically if you lived there, you were a Celtics fan. You had to be, And so before I was old enough to really choose my own team, I was just a Celtics fan, so I didn't get beat up at school, And then I just started to kind of formulate my own opinions, and I started becoming a huge Shaquille O'Neal fan at LSU. I was like, man, this guy averages 28 points per game in college. He's a sophomore. He's shattering backboards. He became my favorite player. I got posters of him while he was still in college. I got a T-shirt of him while he was still in college, just like, kind of bootleg stuff. And then when he went pro, he was my favorite player, and I was an Orlando Magic fan up until 1996, when Shaquille O'Neal decided to leave Orlando to go to Los Angeles. And I'm a very player loyal person. And so I said, well, I'll be a Lakers fan then. Fine. Shaq's going to LA. I'll be a Lakers fan. And it happened to work out. I mean, they had Eddie Jones, Nick Van Exel. The coach was Del Harris. This is pre-Phil.
They had Eddie Jones. They had a young kid too very soon, though.
They did. So when they got Shaquille O'Neal, they no longer needed Vlade Divac. He was their starting center when Shaq signed there. So they traded Vlade Divac to the Hornets for a high school player named Kobe Bryant. And he became my favorite player over time. And so when Shaq left for Miami, instead of following him, I just stayed in LA. Had a couple rough seasons. Then we got a couple championships. Heartbreaker against Boston in 2008. And then, now we're back, fell on some hard times again, a couple first round picks. Then LeBron comes here, which I was not a fan of when it happened. But it worked out. So, yeah.
But it worked out. So whatever. So talk to me about, was the summer of 2008 just awful? Like when that Celtics championship over the Lakers in your lifetime as a Lakers fan, was that a rough summer in New England?
Well, yeah, because everyone's, crazy about it, and you try to keep your fandom to yourself because they're going to rub it in your face. Listen, if you know anything about New England fans, whether you're Red Sox fans, Patriots fans, Celtics fans, they're going to rub everything in your face. They are the most obnoxious fan base. I'll give you Philadelphia maybe, but Boston's right there. And so I kept it to myself. And then in 2010, 2 days after Game 7, I wore my Kobe Bryant shirt all over Boston. So.
How'd that go?
Actually, I got all compliments. Nobody snickered or anything. Most people came up to me like, "Oh man, nice shirt."
That's respect. I gotta say, I wonder if it'd be the same in the 80s with Magic and Bird, or how that worked. I mean, as someone I wasn't alive back then, but that'd be interesting to see in the New England. No, it's fascinating to see where people come from with fans. So I don't know if I want to say fortune or misfortune. I was born in Beaumont and very quickly thereafter moved to Houston. Beaumont's in the Houston area, so it's all really the same thing. And my first, I say sports memory, my parents had some sort of a party with people over around the 95 championship. I was 4 years old. I remember everyone's excited. Oh yeah, we win all the time. That's, that was the story. And so then we moved to Austin when I'm in elementary school. There are no pro teams at the time in Austin. It's University of Texas is the pro team. Lots of Spurs fans. You're not that far away from San Antonio. And so people are like, well, who are you watching the NBA this year? Who are you watching the NBA this year? I was like, you guys don't watch the Houston Rockets? What it's new to me, And so I became this adamant Rockets fan in later elementary and middle and so on, because at 4 years old, I thought we won all the time. We haven't won since. And I don't know if, I don't know how that's supposed to go. But I still remember the good old days. It feels like we just had a set of good old days that went really, really fast and didn't quite get as good as we thought they were going to be. But that's the story of Parker Ainsworth, the Houston fan that currently lives. So born in the Houston area, lived in Austin for elementary, middle, and high school, and now I live in Dallas, which, Luka Mania we'll talk about a little bit later as we watch this Hawks game unfold. But man, I continue to be a little disappointed with what they're doing this year. We'll talk more about that. We had time later. All right. So the first, more formal segment I want to get into is called Hot Tea, Cold Tea. Hot Tea, Cold Tea is brought to you by Yeti coolers, cups, and koozies. Yeti is the go-to shop for keeping things, like trade rumors, hot or cold. Yeti is based out of Austin, Texas. Check out the links in our social media handles for all of your insulated needs for tailgating, camping, and daily life. Yeti, built for the wild. As I drink, I got actually have hot tea here in this one, and then I have an iced beverage in this one, and we'll leave things at that. I have hot tea and cold tea is based on the idea, though, that kind of like the Kermit the Frog meme, where some of these trade rumors are piping hot, and some have a little bit more kick to them. Some of them are a little more ice cold, like how we drink tea here in the South. And while Yeti cups can keep things warm or cooled for up to 8 hours. Let's see what you guys think of these trade rumors. My first one I want to start with And whether it's talking about Cleveland, I mean Sexland with Luke or whatever the case may be here, I want to hear what you guys think about Andre Drummond. Drummond is a big man. He has led the league in rebounds several times, and his on the floor presence is well known. I want to hear, what do y'all think about? Is he a buyout guy, a trade guy? Where is he headed? And kind of what y'all think. So I'm gonna start with the Cleveland Sexland expert and Luke, and then I'll move on to Wayne.
Expert might be a little too nice. Andre Drummond, he's tricky. You see the numbers he's putting up. I think he's still is he still averaging the double-double, I believe.
Yep.
It's what would you really give up for a guy like Drummond? Like, if we sit here and we think about it, and you're a contender, what would you get? I'm not giving up a first-round pick for Andre Drummond. Isn't his contract up at the end of this year too? Or
yeah, so he's expiring.
If
you think you can re-sign him, if you think you can re-sign him, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, to me, he has to be a buyout guy. That's the best situation, unless the team is extremely desperate. And I really pray it's not this one on my head right now. But I just don't see Andre Drummond being traded. He has to be a buyout guy, and I think that's the right thing for Cleveland to do, because they're not going to really do anything, even if they make that new play-in tournament. So, and watching Jared Allen for the past 3 years, he needs to get in that starting lineup. He needs to get acclimated with Garland and Okoro and Garland, Okoro, and Sexton. And they really need to get that unit gelling because they're so young. I think Allen's the oldest, and he's like 22 or 23. So, if I'm them, I buy him out and just ride it out, because I don't think he's going to carry him anywhere.
So, Wayne, you think Luke thinks you should write it out. Your face makes me think you might have other ideas on your mind. So what are you thinking happens with Andre Drummond here down the stretch?
Well, I was going to say it's a piping hot rumor, because I do think he is going to be on the move. I do. And it's such a puzzling situation for me, because he's only 27 years old and he's averaging 18 and a half and 14.2. He leads the league in rebound almost every year. He's already had 3 20-20 games this year. He's had 18 double-doubles. Yes, he's in the last year of his contract, but this is a guy, he's a premium player. Like, why would you? It's like letting go of Giannis. And I know that that's an extreme, but I'm just saying, you're letting go of a guy who's 27 years old and he averages 18 and 15. I mean, this is a guy that you can't get a second-round pick for. Like, Boston is not going to give you a second-round pick for the home stretch to get into the playoffs with a big rim protector. I don't understand when Cleveland was talking about releasing him. I just don't understand. It's such a poorly run organization if that's how you do things, because you should be able to get something for this guy.
Agreed. Well, and I think the interesting thing on a buyout is just conceding you can't get for this guy particularly. It's just conceding you can't get a trade partner, right? Because he is a high contract, a lot of money, but he's 27, and like we said earlier, he's led the league in rebounds several times. He seems to be an automatic average double-double guy. He feels like a blast from the past, and so you do kind of have to schematically get your team ready for that. But you've also seen, call me an old school basketball coach, I consider a rebound a defensive stat because it ends the possession, right? And the Nets need some defense. I don't know if he's necessarily the answer, right? But they need some defense. I don't know if they have a lot of stuff to trade for him right now, but they need some defense. Yeah. I also have seen some interesting stuff about potentially flipping with Toronto/Tampa Bay. And what I think is interesting there is, I don't know if he's not Marc Gasol. I think about things that Tampa/Toronto are missing, and they seem to be missing Marc Gasol from a couple years ago, missing Serge Ibaka from a couple years ago. But he is size, and I guess being very large is probably the thing he has the most in common with Marc Gasol. I think it's piping hot too, because I think if he ends up on the move, the team that gets him will get better. I also think we're all on the same page that Cleveland is committing to Jared Allen. Now, I have a soft spot for Jared Allen for a lot of reasons, one of which is he went to my alma mater, but shout out to Jared Allen. I think that it's clear that they're going on this all 23 and under team, and that means he's got to move. I think that he's going to end up somewhere and make them better. I just don't know where it is, because at this point, if they still got him, does that mean the market's that cold? I think he's a hot player to have out. Speaking of moving him to Toronto/Tampa, Wayne, I'll start with you this time. What do you think of the smoke behind some kind of a Kyle Lowry move? He seems to be like the face of that franchise in a lot of ways. I mean, you got Pascal Siakam, you had DeMar DeRozan, you had Kawhi, but he's been this constant there. So what do you think's going on there?
So this is another one I think is hot. And I think it's because they've just signed Van Vliet to an $84 million deal. And he's in the last year of his deal, Lowry is, and you're not going to pay him $30 million a year again. I mean, the guy averages 14.5 points per game. And I know he's the leader in the face of the franchise, but you're really like Cleveland. This is a youth movement. You know, you're going with Van Vliet, you're going with Siakam. You know, you're going to try to move on from Lowry. He's a guy I could actually see getting the buyout because he's 33 or 34, whatever he is. He's 34. He's 34 years old. So he's a guy I would buy out because who's going to trade for a guy making $30 million a year who's 34 years old and can't even score 15 points per game? You know, it's got to be a team who's really desperate or a team that's just trying to clear some cap space. Maybe somebody who has like a big contract they're trying to move that has 2 years left on it to you so they can dump it at the end of the year. But other than that, I don't think you really have a lot of trade partners here. And so for me, I think that this is the most likely buyout scenario.
Interesting. So we're talking buyouts here. You know, I've seen some of this idea of maybe he and Drummond switching sides. So back to the Sexland expert. Luke, what's your thoughts on Kyle Lowry?
Yeah, I've been going over this for a couple days, and you know, when I think of where Kyle Lowry could go, I'm trying to think of. You only think of contenders in this situation, right? Who can actually trade for him? You know, the Clippers don't have any more picks. The Nets don't have any more picks. The Bucks don't have any more picks. The Lakers don't even have any more picks. So who are you trading for Kyle Lowry? So is it? You know, I'd have to say, you know, first episode. No shame. It's cold tea, then, isn't it?
That's fair. I got to admit, when I was tossed this one at first as an idea, I was like, there's no way the Raptors trade Kyle Lowry. He's been there forever, right?
Yeah.
Like he's going to retire a Raptor. And I guess with the way the league works, he could bounce around and still retire a Raptor if he did get moved. I look at him and say, I wonder if you were to trade a player for Drummond, if that does end up matching up. I also think there might be, so he's not the all-star guard or the blue chipper that I think Miami wanted, but I think there's a culture fit with him and what Miami's doing. I don't know what they have to offer. I do know they have lots to offer, though, because they were in all kinds of talks with Houston at one point, and it was like they didn't want to put all of it on the table for Harden, but you could put one or two guys on the table for Lowry, and I feel like it'd be a fair swap, whether that's Nunn and someone, you know, a Nunn and Olynyk or something else, you know, because you know, whenever Nunn is finally back to being himself, you know, he got COVID in the offseason, but whenever Nunn's back to being himself, he really was a second-team all-rookie guard last year in a very good guard class, I thought. I would call this hot because his off-the-floor stuff, again, reading his off-the-floor stuff, I don't know Lowry personally or anything like that, but reading his off-the-floor stuff makes me think the team that gets him also gets better, kind of like Drummond on the floor. I think the team that gets Lowry would benefit from it. I don't know how he ends up in one of those teams that needs that locker room presence or needs a veteran with a ring like Milwaukee might or something. I just don't know how he gets there. So this one I would hear what y'all have to say because this is the team nearest and dearest to my heart. We talked about fan origin stories earlier. Victor Oladipo. And with Victor Oladipo, he has an expiring contract. You know, when he left Indiana, close to Luke, it was rumored that he enjoys South Beach and may have been heading to Miami. Now that he's in Houston, right, he's served his time and is able to be traded again. There are all kinds of rumors flying around Houston about, like, when is Eric Gordon going to go? Where is PJ Tucker going to go? Because they're kind of like the last vestiges of the old guard. And Oladipo makes, in a package with either one of those guys, it a lot more enticing for someone else, I would assume, right? Because Gordon's old, PJ's old, whatever. Is it a ride it out till he goes to Miami thing, or what are you guys thinking with Victor Oladipo? What can you tell me? Who are we working with as Rockets? Wayne, what you got?
Oh, me? All right. I don't. So my take, I think it's hot. I think that he is going to move because Houston, I think, is out of it. They're in 12th place. They're 12 and 13. 12 and 13. And Oladipo, I think, is a great fit alongside John Wall. I really do. When they made that trade, I thought this was the perfect backcourt mate for him because they're both defensive-minded guys. And as you can see, Houston's defense has gotten a lot better with adding him and adding John Wall. So I thought it was a great fit, but you aren't really winning games. He is in the last year of his deal. So it really depends on what sort of conversations the Rockets have had with him behind closed doors, right? I mean, they say, hey, do you want to stay? Because if I'm them, I want him to stay. I'm extending him. But if he doesn't want to be there, then it is what it is. It's the last year of his deal. He can leave if he wants. And so if he's indicated to you that he will not resign or he won't sign an extension, then yeah, you move on from him. It may not be Miami because again, I don't know if Miami would give up a ton for him. Although if he is going to resign in Miami, if he says, yeah, if you trade me in Miami, I'm going to sign a 4-year deal, 5-year deal with Miami, then maybe they give up a little bit more. But again, I feel like him and Jimmy Butler are kind of redundant. And so I don't understand the fit there. But yeah, I think he's probably on the move if he's not going to resign. But if I'm the Rockets, I'm doing everything in my power to talk him into staying.
Interesting. Luke, what you think? What can you tell me? Who else might the Rockets be working with?
So I'm going to go hot tea as well, but I don't necessarily agree that he should be on the move. You mentioned Jimmy Butler. My biggest thing is I feel like people want to make Victor Oladipo Jimmy Butler, that come up story. The way he ended up getting his own team finally and got to the finals. I just don't see Victor as that guy. He's not Batman. I don't even know if he's a Robin. And I think if he could settle into a role on a contender, he could really, really contribute there. But that's up to him. I'm not giving a guy like Victor Oladipo the max. I'm not. He's got a bad injury history. He hasn't proved it yet. And his best years in Indiana were few. And I think they cracked the 4 or 5 seed. So I'm calling it hot tea because I think someone will come in and try to get Victor. And I think, some team will pay a hefty price for him, but I don't agree with it.
Well, you can call me a homer, but I'm going to stay hot tea on it too. I think the biggest thing I see is that kind of like a combination of what you're saying, he serves a role for the right team. And I think his role in Houston, when he and Wall are healthy enough to do things like play back-to-back, right? They're still coming back from major injuries. And so they're kind of like when they have back-to-back weekend hits, like Monday, Tuesday did just this week for Houston. Wall takes one game, Oladipo takes the next, and that's hurting some chemistry stuff. I will say it's hot tea to me because if he's really on the trade market, that means he really doesn't want to stay in Houston. And, who thinks they can talk him into staying if, he's got a lot of the show here in Houston and he can't get it. One thing I'm going to throw at you, we'll call this, throwing extra lemon slice in your tea or something, a little bit extra, shake it up. We just talked some about Dallas, because Dallas is currently playing Atlanta. Last I saw, they're down 10 in the third quarter. Dallas came in with high hopes. Luka was high on all your Vegas boards for MVP. We had a couple big plays and moments in the playoff bubble. Is there any package you could see Dallas throwing in to pull Oladipo to Dallas as a third fiddle, right? He's a smaller guard playing opposite of Luka. You have KP as an extender, so you still have a lane space for him to drive. Does Dallas have pieces to put around his in back, or is that a fit that I'm making up because I want someone? What do you see there, Wayne?
I mean, essentially, you could. I mean, I don't think Dallas has anything really enticing that I would want if I'm Houston. But at the same time, basically, if you're Houston, all you gave up was a second-round pick for him, right? So, I mean, if you get that back, then why not? I mean, if you're going to lose him anyways, you get that pick back. So, I don't think they get a first for him unless he wants to stay in Dallas. Again, that's a conversation he's got to have, and I don't think he does. Like we said, he's a Miami guy, or he wants to go to Miami. So, I think Dallas could probably put something together, again, either an expiring contract, because I don't think they're going to take on salary to get rid of expiring salary. I just don't think they're going to do that. But unless you sweeten it with a first round pick, I think that most likely you're looking at a second round pick probably for him.
Fair. And again, second round pick would make us even on it, I guess. And, we didn't think we're going to have Harden at all this year back in November. So we're back where we started. Luke, your Brooklyn Nets started this whole thing and we ended up with Oladipo at the end of it. If you were to end up in Dallas, do you think there's anything there, or am I making stuff up out of thin air because we're watching Dallas in the background here?
I don't think you're making stuff up out of thin air. I don't think the fit's terrible because you're not going to put Porzingis in it, and we don't know what he's going to be like as the second best player on a team who can make a run. Luka's Luka. There's not much more to elaborate there. I think that'd be maybe not so much Dallas, but a team where he's behind guys like that. A superstar and then another guy like Porzingis, where he doesn't have to carry the weight of the team. I don't know a package that Dallas would give up for him. That's where I kind of stand on it.
Gotcha. One other guard also in the Bayou area, although a very, we'll say different profile. Victor Oladipo is a quiet all-star of sorts. Lonzo Ball is a loud and boisterous, or at least his dad is a loud and boisterous, and he's not really an all-star right now, though he is still clearly very young. There was all kinds of reports that broke out in the last week or 10 days about Lonzo Ball potentially being on the move. Lots of options here for the young guard. I think that's both a combination of people think it's enticing to get other talent to New Orleans, like that. They think the New Orleans may want people, and they also think that Lonzo is a decent long guard defending. He is a young guy as far as his shooting on offense goes. He's obviously got great court vision. You see the way he throws lobs to the big fella Zion or whatever. My question to y'all is, because this one's been broken down a lot across the country, just because Lonzo Ball is a hot topic, his brother may win Rookie of the Year, right? It's easy to talk about the Ball family. Is there a Lonzo Ball trade you all have enjoyed looking at or are more excited about than others? We'll start with Luke.
Yeah, I keep hearing Chicago. I don't hate it. What's Kobe White going to end up being? I don't know. Talk about Lonzo is marketing in there, but then that just piles up more bigs for the Pelicans who can't develop space right now anyway. Yeah, I think Lonzo just is what he is at this point, and I think we just keep waiting for him to be more because he was a second overall pick. But I think this is just Lonzo. I don't think he can carry a team, but that doesn't mean he can't be a good point guard on a team who can distribute the ball and just if if his last name wasn't Ball, what do we think of Lonzo? That's kind of where I stand with him. LaMelo's better. That's already obvious. It's just I feel like the sample size at some point the sample size is just what it is, and I think we got that with Lonzo. So I've heard Chicago and Detroit, the two most out there. Dennis Smith Jr., Killian Hayes. I don't know why Detroit would take on another one, but based off their offseason, they're just doing whatever. I can see Chicago if they're really trying to get rid of marketing, but I think the Pelicans are going to have to sweeten that with the first.
Wayne, you guys see Lonzo for as long as any fan base, right? You talk about the dark years. Everyone would kill to only have 6 dark years. But I want to hear, as someone who got to see him a little bit firsthand, and obviously you're a basketball guy, so you followed him since he left too. I don't mean to imply that you haven't, but what do you think would be an enticing place or potential swap with Lonzo, with lots of them out there?
So I like Lonzo a lot. I really do. I think he's 24 years old. I think that he essentially is a walking triple-double in what he can give you. I mean, it's not going to be a flashy triple-double. It's not going to be a Russell Westbrook 37, 12, and 13, but it'll be 10, 10, and 11. And he's just an all-around good offensive player. I agree with Luke. I don't think he's a leader of a team. He's not going to be the star of your franchise, but he's a guy who could be the 4th best player. He could be a Rondo on a team,
Yeah.
and I think that'd be a really good fit for him for a team like that. If we're talking about, trades, I know that we did see Chicago as a name that came out, maybe for Zach LaVine, but they'd have to give up 2 firsts to go with him. And then again, what are you trying to do if you're New Orleans? You're moving on from him. He's on a rookie deal. If you're going to take a big player, it's got to be somebody who you think is going to help you get out of the basement. So if I'm not going to take Chicago, the trade scenario that I like, and it hasn't been brought up, but I kind of like it, is Lonzo to Golden State for Andrew Wiggins. Because I think that he's a good fit there where Steph Curry can play off the ball a little bit more while Clay is still rehabbing.
So I didn't mean to cut you off when I made a movement, but I also was enticed by his passing ability with next year's Golden State Warriors, because Steph on his own is still just, historic shooter, but one shooter. I was seeing if he could be with the ball, you have Clay as a tall guy can play the 3, and then Steph playing a little bit of an undersized 2 off the ball of him. I was wondering if it was more of a Kevon Looney package. I know that we talk about how many bigs they have. I don't know how long Steven Adams' tenure will be in New Orleans. Looney seems to be more in the age bracket of the Brandon Ingrams and Zions and the way the rest of their team is to me. I thought there would be something interesting there. Wiggins obviously also would help space out the floor, and getting rid of Wiggins would help space out the floor in Golden State as well, because he's not the same shooter. Although, to be fair, I thought Oubre was going to be a shooter, and he clearly hasn't been this year either. I think the only reason this gets hot is if he goes to a contender, though. This is cold tea to me if we find out in a week he's in Chicago, and not just because that's the cold, windy city, but because he and LaVine would be fun, but are they really making a lot of noise out east? Are they?
Hell no.
Right. I was say, are they any better than his brother is in Charlotte? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Hell no is very passionate, because Chicago, with he and LaVine, and they'd probably still have I don't think they'd have to send out Patrick Williams. Like, they might get to the bottom of the playoff picture because the East is a little bit easier to do that, but I don't know. All these guys are hot tea, cold tea, whatever, because they're potentially on the move. There's reports on each of them about being on the move. We all thought, or correct me if I'm wrong when it's your turn, I certainly thought, especially after John Wall was on the move, that Bradley Beal was going to be on the move. There have been all the gifs and memes and so on about him looking unhappy. And he's putting up 60 in losses, and Bradley Beal is playing very good basketball and not getting a lot of wins for it. He's stuck in Washington. Washington seems to be bottoming out. It's hard to believe a guy like that in what's really probably the prime of his career, not just because he's getting 60 every now and then, but because he's really, a guy in his late 20s and he's shooting the ball as well as he ever has this year and so on. Is Bradley Beal really about to stay put? The latest reports I'm seeing are that he may stay there and he may be happier than we all realize. Wayne, what do you think? Is he really staying put?
For sure. He's an anchor there. I think that there's no way they move on from him. I think they want to build around him. He's averaging 33 points per game. This is a guy that you want to build around. You want to put a team around him. Moving on from him doesn't make you any better. If you move on from Bradley Beal, maybe you get a similar package to Harden, right? Where you can get like 4 first-round picks or something for him because he's such a huge talent. But what are you going to do with that? Be good in 7 years? You want to be good now. You got a guy averaging 33 points per game. You got Russell Westbrook here to try to make that team better. It didn't work out. But if anything, I think Russell Westbrook's on the move, not Bradley Beal.
Ooh, there's some hot tea there. Russell Westbrook on the move. Russell Westbrook being the first MVP to get traded a year after he got to a team and then get traded less than a year after he got to the next team would be hot tea. I don't know if I could drink it. Luke, what you got? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Westbrook's about out of trade partners, ain't he? I think he's been traded for everyone who matches his contract at this point. Yeah, no, the thing with Bill is I think it's going to be his decision at the end of the day, and I just don't think he's going to want to leave. You keep hearing that, it's him saying he wants to be there, and I heard a quote, I don't know if it was off of ESPN or what, but they interviewed him after one of the game, and he said he needed to work on his emotions on the sideline. And he said, it's unacceptable, but he's not going to act like he's not pissed off for losing. So I think at the end of the day, he's just a competitor. He's 26. He just keeps getting better. I don't even think we've seen his peak yet. And I think he's just mad because they keep losing. And obviously, that's kind of a stupid statement to make. But, I don't think they trade him because I don't think he wants to go. And it's like you said, they traded for Westbrook to try to make it work. It hasn't worked yet, unless they're playing Brooklyn with like 4 seconds left in the game. But the package they could get for him would be huge, but it's exactly like you said. Were they going to be good in 7 years? You're going to build around Hachimura in the meantime. Westbrook's going to be retired by then. It's just stupid. I just don't see why you would move him unless you're getting a cornerstone piece now. I heard a James Wiseman package once. It was like mixing. It was like Wiseman, a first, and then they brought in another team and then sent Bill over to Golden State. So that makes sense, but I just don't see it.
Well, I will say Beal on the floor with Golden State, it would be sick.
Yeah.
I don't know if another big, that's essentially admitting that you made the mistake with one of your young ones, I guess, right now, or at least that they're not Wiseman. Interestingly enough, I feel like this is cooled down tea, like the kind of tea you left out and it took more than its 8 hours in your Yeti cup and it's just cooler later. Because I certainly was buying into the idea that he was frustrated and he was doing the head shake and he was like, get me out of here. And I don't think he's the kind of person that would ever have the Harden press conference where he asked out. But I did anticipate kind of some Bradley Beal behind closed doors, almost close to the way Anthony Davis did a while back, right? A year and a half ago, whatever that was, where like the rumor leaked that he'd asked New Orleans to get traded to LA right before that trade deadline. And then he didn't, and then they didn't play him, and then they did play him, and then he got traded. He got traded in the summer anyway. I anticipate kind of more of that movement with Bradley Beal. But if he's really happy, maybe he is that old school guy that sticks it out in Washington, sees what happens. Frankly, there are a lot of fans that would welcome that back. I kind of get indifferent on that kind of stuff, but certainly a lot of people that would appreciate that. All right, and so that's been it for hot tea, cold tea. Unless you guys have any lemon slices that I can't think of that I'm missing. Any big name I'm missing in the market right now?
Bring Jared Allen back to Brooklyn.
The Nets need to swap back there. You'll send Kyrie back. I hear you send Kyrie back.
I don't care who. Just bring him back.
Fascinating. I love Jared Allen. Jared Allen, if this ever gets to you, please come join us for Yeti. I'll send you a Yeti cup. Why not? All right. Now, what I will say is next segment is called Wednesday Night Writes. So again, bellyupsports.com is a site where several of us write about basketball. Some of us beat write about specific teams. So much write, like I write about sneakers sometimes, a little bit of everything. Some even write about football. But it's a cool site with like different thoughts. And so my idea for this is really to hear about what have y'all written or read about in basketball this week. It doesn't have to be from Belly Up Sports, although I do enjoy some of the stuff we've got, and I got a couple mentions from them about stuff I want to make sure I put out there that I enjoyed. But basketball is a fun thing to be engaged in and talking about and reading about and learning about more. And so just because you're at the far end of my screen, like I'm going to start with you. Luke, what did you write about this week or read about this week pertaining to basketball?
Actually just had a piece published today about LeBron and, the GOAT conversation. Not so much, it compares him and Jordan a little bit, but it's more about I feel like at this point, he's been in the league 18 years. He's 36 years old. He's won 4 championships. He's been to 10. If the argument is Jordan went to 6, never went to a game 7, I get it. I do. But what's the argument eventually going to be? It's like, oh, it took LeBron 12 finals runs into his 40s for him to win 6. It's like, that's pretty impressive. He had to go to 12 finals to win 6, and he was 40 when he did it, and he was the best player on all those teams. Now, is he going to be the best player on that 6th one, or maybe that fifth one? And Wayne, you can probably, you follow the Lakers more than I do, but to me, I wanted to get it out there because it's, he was Doan the chosen one so early, and he's just lived up to it. And just because he's not Jordan, I just feel like at this point, with people just writing it off completely, I just feel like they never gave him a chance to actually be the GOAT.
I do want to hear about what you read, Wayne, but you've got, I don't want to call it the hottest take on NBA GOAT talk I've ever heard, but it's certainly one that I don't think I hear very often. And so I'll let you explain it, but what's your GOAT take? Because it's a Laker fan, but it's a Laker fan take, but not one people think about very often.
Sure. Well, so I was actually going to bring up that piece that Luke wrote because I actually read it today. I was like, oh, I got to read some stuff because I usually don't read a lot. I'll be honest with you. Unless I'm looking for specific statistics or something, or I'm not really looking for something to read on it. But I did read Luke's piece because the headline grabbed me right away. The King James GOAT discussion is getting harder every day. And I've been saying for years about LeBron, actually, that you can make that case for him based on his skill set when you watch him play and what he does and his all-around game. Certainly that, you can make the comparison. What you were alluding to is that I have Wilt Chamberlain as the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan's second, and then LeBron James is third. So the reason I have Wilt, and I've mentioned it, is because just the sheer dominance. I mean, when I say dominance, I mean records on top of records on top of records. And the way that he played the game, he led the league in assists. I mean, he was, 100 points in the game, but he averaged 50 points per game. I think the same season that he averaged 48.5 minutes per game. So we talk about load management and guys taking these off. The guy averaged 48.5 in a 48-minute game. He had never fouled out of his entire 13-year career.
Wow.
He's just, to me, he's the greatest player of all time. I mean, there's nobody. Jordan didn't dominate his era the same way. LeBron hasn't dominated his era the same way. Kobe certainly didn't. So yeah, I have Wilt as the GOAT, but as far as the piece, which I thought was really great, and I read all the way through it, I agree. I do agree that it makes it harder, especially with the Jordan comparison, because he does so much better than Jordan in terms. I think he's a better ball handler. I think he's a more versatile defender, even in his older age. I think he's a better shooter now. He wasn't when he first came in the league. He's a way better passer. Obviously, he's a Magic Johnson-like passer. So, I mean, you can make that comparison, and I think it's a fair comparison to say that he's better than Michael Jordan if you look at his skill set. However, I don't think no matter how many championships he wins, he will never surpass Jordan, and it's because of how many times he dropped the ball early in his career, and that's something he can't get back. Jordan never dropped the ball, not once in his career. Like, he was a champion through and through. He was a killer through and through. LeBron has had moments, and I've always said that the finals that LeBron lost in Cleveland against Golden State when he averaged a triple-double or whatever it was, that's the greatest performance of basketball I've ever witnessed in my life. Yeah. But he's never put that together for 82 games, and he's never even put it together for a playoff series or for a playoff run. He did it for that one series. I would have loved to have seen him do his whole career that way, and then there would be no question.
Yeah.
So I've got Wayne. Did you have something else you read? Did you read about the GOAT talk too? Did I steal your thunder there?
No. I read that, and then Luke mentioned he published it, and I was like, oh, that's what I was going to talk
about. So I don't mean to say where all your clicks, Luke. I also read about your GOAT talk because I was interested in what you had to say. I go all over the map on the GOAT thing. I think it's probably because I'm a history teacher. That's my day job, and there's I seem to sway back and forth every day. Some days I'm like, yeah, but Jordan won 6 and he really only played 13 complete healthy seasons. And then there's some days I'm like, yeah, but by the time it's all said and done, LeBron's going to have done. And then I'm like, there's some days I'm like, well, Bill Russell won all those. And then there's some days I'm like, well, but Wilt Chamberlain, I go all over the mapping on the day. I have more tiers in my head, and I put Kareem in there too in that tier. I catch a lot of flack because I put Kobe in the tier right below that. But I think that's I wander, and so I enjoy reading what other people say about it. They're more decisive, probably because I'm not decisive enough. And so that's one thing I read. Then a couple other belly up things. Shout out to Tyler Reed. I read a deal he wrote about NBA stock options, which was a really, in light of the GameStop news a week ago, was a really interesting way to look at basketball. I'm not sure I'm selling the Milwaukee Bucks though, Tyler. Holding the Miami Heat might look like a bad move right now too, but I think it's time for a part 2 a week later because those things change. Then Max Steins wrote about the Warriors' inconsistency and how that's clouding what their potential really is this season. I catch a lot of flack as a Warriors hater on Twitter. I've literally been blocked by Warriors World and a few different things because I get in arguments with them and they don't like to hear from me. I really think of them as this accumulation of a lot of incredible pieces at the right times that all talent, as far as the talent goes, did very well together. And then I catch flack and I'm like, yeah, but is Steph Curry really the best player in the league? And boom, I just attack. So I enjoy reading about the Warriors, and I wanted to make sure that I got out there and said, I enjoy the way Steph Curry plays basketball. I just think there's flaws. And that's apparently enough to give me Twitter hate later. We'll see. One not belly up thing I did read, but I want to plug from The Defector, which is a bunch of people that used to write for Deadspin. Gary Nathan wrote about Draymond Green's big brained himself into a 31-foot game loser. Now, did y'all see the game this is referencing before I go any farther on the 31-foot game loser where Draymond Green, the Warriors have the ball with 4 seconds left. They're down 3, and it looks like he's about to get fouled. Anyway, the inbound ball to Draymond about the half-court line. Dejounte Murray is running up, chopping his feet down. Green clearly thinks the foul is coming because they're up. They're Warriors down 3, and so 2 free throws means you can't win or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Green just heaves it from half court. It's atrocious and awful. And if you're watching this and don't know what I'm talking about, once this is over, go look it up on YouTube or something, because it is atrocious and awful. And he's about 4 feet short. Dejounte Murray's just saying, I didn't foul him. Do you foul him? And it's talking about this ultimate, it's a joking bit about this big brain back and forth between the Spurs typically do foul there. So they told their huddle and the biggest of big brain moves to be don't foul. They're going to see it coming. It's a funny back and forth. And it's a fun way to look at laughing at Draymond because, again, not a total Warriors hater, but it is fun to laugh at Draymond. The last segment I want to do here, and we'll close out with this as we come up on almost 45 minutes for the inaugural episode, which I will say I had no idea how long this was going to take. So that we're under an hour might be a good thing. We're going to do what's called a buzzer beater. So buzzer beater take is I'm going to give everyone 24 seconds to get off some basketball related take. Now, I didn't give it any more parameters than that. So I got to be honest, I don't really know what's coming out of Wayne or Luke. It could be piping hot, like some of that hot tea we talked about. It could be a direct shot at my Houston Rockets and I. It could be a direct shot at anyone listening to this, I have no idea. But what I will say is it's a chance to get off your take before the buzzer goes off. So I have the clock. Do either one of y'all want to go first?
Okay.
All right, I'll start with Wayne because Wayne did throw in the chat earlier in the Slack that he felt really confident about his, and so I want to see this. I want to hear this. I'm anxious. So I got a clock here. I don't know if you can see it. I got a clock here. I'm gonna press go, and I'll just give you a little countdown in 3, 2, 1, go.
Stop putting Bill Russell in the top 10. He is not a top 10 basketball player. He is not. I don't care about his 11 championship rings. He can stuff them up his rear end. The guy played with 8 Hall of Famers at the same time. Okay. He was a role player on those Celtics teams. I don't want to hear another word about it. You know who he is? He's Dennis Rodman in a green jersey. Dennis Rodman's actually better than Bill Russell. Get out of here, Bill Russell.
Good.
We had the New Englander and the most that was the perfect combination of Lakers fan and New Englander because I had the fire of New England with the passion and the opinion of a Lakers fan. That was beautiful. Luke, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
My mind is blown. Can I take a second to process what just happened?
I don't know that I think I have 13-year-old kids that don't know that they've ever seen Bill Russell play that would put Bill Russell in their top 10 just blindly. Like, honestly, just
because they
blindly.
haven't seen him play. If you've seen him play,
All right, Luke, same thing to you. I got 24 seconds. I'll put the timer closer to the camera when I go. 3, 2, 1, go.
In a season where everybody absolutely hates Nets fans and the front runners and all are mighty, I do not believe in this team. Historically the worst defense and historically the best offense. That shit will not hold over in the playoffs. I don't even know if they're going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We traded all our picks. I got to watch Jared Allen play in freaking Cleveland for the next 30 years. Like, I'm drinking enough as it is.
All right. I'm going to keep the clock below me, but I promise I will click it. I just want to be able to see it while I'm talking. All right, I gotta stretch out. God, I'm still laughing about Jared Allen. Like, who would have thought when Jared Allen was playing high school basketball, 6 years ago, whatever it was, that he is going to be the centerpiece of this dynasty. Anyway, all right. And then Bill Russell's on the top 10. That's got me tripping a little bit. All right. All right. 3, 2, 1, and all right. So there's a lot of talk around the Super Bowl that just wrapped up about Tom Brady being the GOAT of all GOATs. He is 43. He just won his 7th Super Bowl, and he has been in the Super Bowl as many seasons as he has not. It does track. It makes sense in the moment. It's very heat of the moment take. But when I talk to kids I teach all day about Tom Brady, their response is he's the Michael Jordan of quarterbacks, quote, 13-year-old. Who? That got cut off fast. I was going to go a lot longer rant there.
You got to stop getting your information from 8th graders, man.
They're who I'm around all day. I need friends. No, what I will say is I've been riled up about that all week, and I'll leave it at that because I got cut off by the buzzer. I guess I missed. Thank you all for pulling up tonight with us. That's the first ever episode. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, things you want to see in the next episodes, things you want to see come back in the episode, hit us in the comment section, shoot us a DM on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Midweek Midrange, on Instagram at Midweek Midrange. I'm at Painsworth 512. That's PAINSWRTH 512 on all. Wayne and then Luke, y'all got socials you want to hand out?
Sure. Sports Infinity 5 on Twitter, Infinity Sports Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and YouTube channel Infinity Sports Podcast. We put up 4 episodes a week, so feel free to check us out. 30 minutes each. Gotcha.
And then Luke, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at LAGraham2 on Twitter. That's LAGRAHAM. Do not forget the second A, for the love of God. Instagram, Graham6141. I'm on Facebook, Luke Graham, and my Snapchat's also LA Graham. So that's where I get really aggressive, so nobody can really see me and hold me accountable.
Well, I am not quite as aggressive, but again, I'm at Painsworth512, and then the show is everywhere you look. It's at Midweek Midrange. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, and we are growing. So shout us out. We'll talk to you guys later, but thanks for pulling up tonight. We'll catch you next time.